video. Live video. 7 o'clock I said. And it is probably 30 seconds earlier than 7 o'clock. So I'm feeling very proud right now. Very proud. I've been anticipating being with you again. I came to you on Friday, November 1st with my declaration that I would be here, that I would be present, and I would show myself to you and do this work that has been burning inside of my soul for a very long time. So happy Tuesday. As I said, I had no idea, I have no idea of the timing, exactly when I'm going to do it, but I will always give you a little heads up and let you know that the Queen is coming to you live via Facebook. Because I'm trusting the Holy Spirit to lead me and guide me through this process. And like I said, there's a wealth of things, knowledge, information, spirit things that I have come together, that I have within me, that I have written in around. And so I'm bringing them forth in this divine fashion. So, Queendom Culture is live. And the conversation that I wanted to have with you guys today is, I just made up the title when they said fill in the description, even though I was contemplating and meditating over the past few days of what my conversation would be. The first one, what would we be discussing in this live video? And I came up with, what did it say? Queen, who art thou? Queen, who art thou? So last night, as I was preparing in my spirit and thinking, I already felt a couple of days ago that I wanted to come to you live today. And so I asked, okay, so what are we talking about? What is this about? And it's an inquiry. We're having an inquiry into what is this thing? What is Queen? There's t-shirts. They got every kind of t-shirt, Queen this, I'm the Queen. All kinds of crown, even one of the old sayings from the Queen, Queen Elizabeth from back then says, stay calm, Queen, stay calm, something that came from the Queen. So there's a season that has come upon us and all of this Queen stuff is in the air. But what are we really talking about? Like does it mean to be a Queen? It's obviously much more than putting on a t-shirt or buying a bag that says Queen. So last night I did a little research, and my question was this, and this is the question of the day because I won't be long before you. The question has to do with, I thought about what are the names, like what are the terms and what are the names that women have been known by? What terms, what titles, what slang? These are the categories that I ran into as I was doing my little quick Google research last night. And I thought it was just instructive, very instructive. And this is what I wanted to share with you today, because obviously there are titles, roles that we as women, or women, walk into or born into. And so some of the roles that came up, obviously, a daughter. A woman can be a daughter, a sister, a niece, a girlfriend, a wife, a mother, an aunt, a godmother. Those are some of the roles that we just walk into just in our existence and being in relationship with one another. And then I began to look at other references that are given to women. And I thought it was kind of hilarious, because there's a lot of negative. There's a lot of negative naming that goes toward women. Those roles that we hold as mother, as daughter, as wife, those are inherently honorable roles. But then you have terms like gold digger, huzzy. This is what I found out. Mac mama, PYT, ragamuffin, skank. Remember that? I remember we grew up in the Marcy where I grew up, we used to call people skanks. Skank. This one I found to be totally like just dirty, nasty, disgusting. Skeezy hole. Skeezy hole. Now, like, I don't know who would even open their mouth to say that. Like, how could you say that about a woman? Tramp. What you call me? Tramp. You know, women have been called tramps. They've been called vamps. Sex kitten. And trollop. Even a trollop. Now, I think that's some kind of British word for, like, you know, a little bit of a low-life girl. So there are a lot of names, a lot of terms, a lot of references that have been given to us as women outside of our name, outside of our role. Naturally, from the time you're born, when you're a child and you go through your stages of life, you go from a child to a teenager. And then, ladies, and I'm speaking to women, when you're 18 years old, you become, technically, legally, a woman. So, at that point, you're entering your adulthood and you are a young lady. And then you become like a young lady, a young adult, then you become a lady and a woman. Ultimately, you're walking into your womanhood. Now, when you're a woman, you can be a miss or you can be a Ms. That's what happened when we got women's lib. Women wanted to be called Ms. and not Miss. You, at some point, if you live long enough, will go from that extreme of being a young lady, a vibrant, beautiful young lady, to a maiden. That's what they should call you, like a maiden or old maid. If your husband died, you become a widow. If you carry yourself in a kind of not so lovely, they'll call you a hag. If you got to stick up your booty, they will call you a prude. There's Mammy. Y'all know about Mammy. Y'all seen her in all of those Gone with the Wind movies and the Aunt Jemima boxes. Women are known as a biddy. And then even as a battle axe, an old battle axe. These are some of the terms, so many terms that we women have been known now as. On a more elegant level, we are known as, when we're fierce and we're in our finest, we are known as a diva. We are known as a lady, a classy lady. And depending on how you want to look at it, a madam or mademoiselle, you know. Madame, she became a little bit of on the side of the mistresses and the one who had women in the house prostituting, that got converted into something a little pejorative, but you could be a madam or mademoiselle. And then, here we go again with some of the other names. I guess the mother of names, the most negative of all names, I don't even have to say it. You know what it is. Begins with a B. Bitch. Bitch. And that seems to be the most popular name that this society wants to give to women in this last 10, 20 years, especially in the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, we become so desensitized and so disrespected and so dehumanized that little boys begin to refer to women as bitches. And you might very well be walking down the street behind a bunch of boys in groups coming from junior high school, talking about my bitch, this bitch, that bitch, I had to do. I mean, the conversations that they have toward girls and toward women is just, it's outrageous. So bitch is like, that's the end all and be all of degradation of women, speaking of women. And it got so bad to the point in this society that not only the men, young men began calling the women bitches, But now a lot of us young black women, call each other bitches in conversation, in reference, like it's a joke, like, you know, and there was a time when someone would say bitch and the whole place would go quiet, and somebody would say, well, what do you know? Do you know what a bitch is? And we had to do research to find out what a bitch is, a female dog. So you don't call a girl a bitch. But now, bitch this, bitch that. We're talking today about Queen, who art thou? So I'm having this little inquiry into what is the distinction. Like, there's so many terms that have been given to us as women, names that we've been called. And out of this whole soup of bullcrap of names deserved, names given, names slandered, terms made toward us, we have decision to make. We need to get some clarity when we make a decision about who we are and who we want to be called. So, diva, lady, madam, mademoiselle, bitch, whore, whoremonger, slut, hoochie mama, witch, and then sometimes, I think this was not too long ago, she's a dime. I guess that's supposed to be like a compliment, but a dime? That's not very much coins, honey. A dime is not a compliment. It's about 9 steps over a penny. Very bad. A dime, a bimbo, a wench. That's something going back to slavery. A biddy, I said, a mammy, a battle axe. Okay. So now we also have a few endearing terms, which when you hear them, just the whole energy of it does something to your spirit. When someone calls you love. Hey, love. Hello, sweetheart. Sweetheart. That's another affable term, way of calling a male or a female, but in this case, we're talking about a woman. Honey. Hello, honey. Now, that's one that can go either way, but the idea of honey, sweet honey, is something nice, something we're speaking of a sweetness. And then, of course, this is a term that I always love, and it always seemed that it took a woman of a certain kind of substance to be able to say, beloved. Beloved. Queen of Four always says that, beloved. And it's such a high energy, loving way of speaking. And beloved, I guess, in that is that old English language that really is of a high note. And that's kind of where the queen comes in as well, on that high note, on the realms of regality, royalty. And that's what we're talking about today when we say, Queen, who art thou? So far, the terms that I've heard do not measure up. They don't allude to the nobility, the royalty, the character, the personage, the level of what one would conjure up in their mind of as a queen. And these are the terms of the day, the majority of names that we are called. Now, of course, if we look at royalty, European royalty, because that's what has been presented to us, very one-sided, very biased. Cultural diversity is not in this, has not been in this conversation. So we were ingrained into the king and the queen, of course. That comes from European history and European colonialism. And then there's the prince and the princess. There's the duke and the duchess. And then there's the emperor and the empress. The terms which Haile Selassie and the Rastafarian movement brought into our presence and brought back to, connected back to our Ethiopian royalty. So those are the terms that are given to royalty. We talked about the roles of women in terms of daughter, sister, those relational terms that identify us. The amorous or loving terms, the few that there are, And then there is just the list, the majority of derogatory sexual, mean, ugly, demeaning names that are commonplace when referring to a woman, and which we have had to accept. And unfortunately, many of us have continued to live into those names. So I'm going to just leave with a question. This is the question that I asked myself. I was trying to remember when was the first time that I really became conscious of queen and the idea of a queen. And I believe I know it was through the media. And I'm going to tell you what it was. It was when I saw the movie Cleopatra. I grew up in a time where we were watching all those Cecil B. DeMille movies, Bible and ancient Kemetic Egyptian and all those kind of dramatic and colorful movies with all of the, decor, just fabulous. And I was a little girl. And I think Cleopatra came out in 1965. It did, because I did my research on that a while ago. I was born a few years before that. I'll just say that. But I remember somewhere, I guess between 8 and 11, that I saw Cleopatra, the movie, Cecil B. DeMille, and I was stuck. I saw Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra. Now, of course, Elizabeth Taylor was one that's supposed to be one of the ideal beauty queens of all women, white women, black women, and they pushed her and Sophia Loren, as the beauty symbols of our times. So us black little girls watching the movies, but you know what? Something deep inside of me knew that Cleopatra was black before anybody could even tell me that. And something deep in my subconscious also let me know, even as a child, that she was an African queen. And I felt connected to her. I really connected to Queen Cleopatra as a little girl watching television. And it touched my soul. And apparently it got etched in there because I am she. I am that African queen. And many of you black women are that African queen. And everything that derives from there, because we are the mothers in this motherland, from the motherland. So that was my first introduction to Queen, a young girl watching media. So it made me think about young women out here, because you are forming your identities and you're growing into your womanhood. And so where do you source your identity from? Where, I remember growing up, there was a lot of examples around us. Our teachers, the media, even though it was whitewashed in a certain kind of way, but the media was there giving us a certain kind of glory, because even right beside the Cleopatra and Cecil B. DeMille movies that we grew up with, you know what else came in? Blaxploitation movies. And the Blaxploitation movies gave us Cleopatra again. Big, beautiful sisters, Pam Grier and them with their afros, kicking butt and, being beautiful and powerful and sex. So that was something, even though there was an underside, to Blaxploitation movies, but the imagery, I'm trying to say, imagery, was powerful. And we received it. And I carried it. Then there were people in the community. We were in community centers, and I had women in the community center that taught us, that showed us things. And there were a lot of people involved in politics, from Angela Davis and on, political leaders, locally and globally, nationally, that you could look at and aspire to. And even at that time, the older women in the community, like where I grew up in Marcy, there were some fine sisters that I looked at growing up. They was in shape, they were feminine, they were beautiful, they knew how to dress, they talked nice, they wasn't cussing and carrying on and being whorish and all this stuff that's going on right now. They were actually good role models that you as a little girl could look up to them, could look at them and say, wow, I want to be like her. I want to carry myself like her, not just dress like her. She's cute, but there was something gracious, about and respectful about the way a lot of the older girls over us carried themselves. So as I think about this, and I think about today's young women, this generation, queens in the making, I go, where are you getting your images from? Where are you getting your queen from? Because you're buying the t-shirts, and I know that power, the queen represents power, and, there's a whole entitlement and serve me kind of energy that's like off the chain going forward. And so maybe young women are trying to just jump into that, like, I'm entitled to be treated such and such in this kind of way as a queen. I get it. I get that. But it's much more than that. It's not just an entitlement. And we can talk about, I will love to continue to talk to you about some other aspects of it as we are going along this journey, because this is a journey and I'm going to take it one step at a time. But I realized that the same way that the media affected me as a woman in terms of growing up and then later forming my self-identity, to me understanding that I'm a queen somewhere in my soul from a really very early age. Yeah, you women, young women especially, are also black women, brown women, women of color, are being inspired, influenced by media. Guess what kind of media? Social media. The media I'm on right now. Social media. So it's still a form of media that's informing you. But it seems that the difference is that the social media that you're being fed is more inspirational toward celebrity worship. Wanting to be like all those housewives and MTV housewives in Atlanta and hip hop. I don't even know, they got so many. They had the Mafia, they had the Jersey ones, Atlanta ones, all these different housewives. I can't. I really. But this is what the influence is toward you young women. So I just want to encourage you to, as you're moving in a direction toward becoming who you are, becoming a woman, and hopefully becoming a queen, the queen that you are, that you really think about where your source is, where you're getting your images of how you want to be a woman in this world. As you could tell by the little list that I shared with you, there are way more negative roles and ways to walk than there are noble, high calling type images and ways of life. Because ultimately, we're talking about words, we're talking about terms, names. But my conversation is going to a place, and the place that I want to talk to you about is being the queen sitting on the throne. And it's not what many people think it is. It's not something that is instantaneous. It's not something that you're entitled to. It is absolutely a process. And I believe it's a process that I can walk with you through, or walk you through as we're going along. So I hope I wasn't too, professorial and didactic. That's not what I'm trying to do. I am still somewhat new in coming to you and sharing the information, but your homework is for you to reflect on what your source is, what's sourcing you in terms of your self-identity and how you walk and move and live and be as a woman. I said it, I believe it before. All women are queens. That is our God-given birthright. Now, how we walk in it, how we live it, we get to choose. So, with that, I leave you with that to think about until the next time. And I will always say, long live the Queen. Blessings. Until the next time.